I am so honored to be introducing the next President of the United States of America, Vice President Kamala Harris.
Yeah, that about sums up this campaign. It's a lot of splash with absolutely no substance whatsoever. But what on earth do we make of these polls coming out? Is Kamala Harris surging? That's certainly what the legacy media wants us to believe. The very same media that told us Joe Biden was the most cognitively fit president we've ever had is now telling us that the single most unpopular vice president ever is suddenly the most popular person on the planet. What's really going on here? Well, gang, that's exactly what we're going to find out. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you stay sane in these insane times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. And that sanity has never been more important, especially with the advent of these insane polls. And I'm going to show you exactly how to make sense of what's really going on. But first, there is something for many of us that's even more serious, and that's owing back taxes. Now, if you've ever experienced this is a huge and painful burden. As I'm sure you know, the IRS is currently on its way to making you pay up. They've hired thousands of new agents and sent over 5 million pay-up letters in 2024 alone. But if you're dealing with all of this mess, I want to connect you with a real, tangible solution. Don't give up your rights or deal with them alone. The IRS is certainly not our friend. Let Tax Network USA, a trusted tax relief firm, save you time and money, the very time and money you deserve to keep. They've saved Americans, get this, they've saved Americans over $1 billion in back taxes. Yes, that's billion with a B, and they've got the skills needed to secure you the best possible deal, from a few thousand to 10 million. From business to personal taxes, let Tax Network USA restore your good standing so you could strengthen your own financial foundation. When your situation's secure, you become the pillar of strength our nation needs right now. Click on that link below or call them at 1-800-245-6000 for a private free consultation, or visit them at tnusa.com/Turley. Now, gang, one of the fundamental reasons we know that Kamala Harris is an electoral disaster is from the very fact that polling firms like Morning Consult are publishing blatantly fraudulent polls. And I'm going to show you exactly that. You may have seen this. This is the latest poll from a Morning Consult, which many are now calling Morning Compost. But it's a poll that shows that not only is Kamala leading in all the swing states, she's now leading by 11 in Michigan alone. Now, Rich Barris, our good friend, he's been on this channel many times, the People's Pundit. I and many others believe he is one of the best polling analysts out there. He had no patience whatsoever with this blatantly fraudulent poll. He called it out as utterly, quote, embarrassing, and pointed out that their own national poll actually contradicts these swing state numbers. Their national poll has Harris winning by just 1. Now, you don't have to be a genius here. You don't win a swing state by 11, but the national poll by only 1. Those numbers don't add up. And the borderline illiterates at the Morning Compost know that. But they publish these patently absurd poll results anyway. And it gets worse. Based on their own polling, Trump is actually polling better in Oregon, California, and New Hampshire than he did in 2020. In other words, the Democrat candidate is currently lagging behind in all of those 3 reliably blue states, not to mention lagging in Virginia and Minnesota and Maine as well. And yet, at the very same time, as this Democrat candidate is struggling in blue states, she has one of the highest leads ever in Michigan. While at the same time, to add insult to injury, Trump is actually winning in Pennsylvania. This same Morning Consult poll has Trump up by 4 in Pennsylvania. That's a 14-point discrepancy between two states with virtually the same electorate. That's why Michigan and Pennsylvania almost always vote the same way in every single presidential election. So what on earth is happening here? What's going on? What are we seeing besides just blatant fraud, right? Well, there is some method to the madness here. And it's what's commonly referred to as a response bias. Okay? Response bias. Every pollster worth their salt knows what a response bias is. And by the way, no one explains it better than Rich. Rich is brilliant with it. But basically what happens is that whenever a candidate sees some good news in a campaign, the supporters of that candidate are inordinately more likely to talk to pollsters during that period immediately following the good news. So Rich often harkens back to the Mitt Romney bump that he got after his first debate with Obama back in 2012. Polls were showing that it looked as if Romney was significantly gaining on Obama, when in point of fact, all that was happening was that Romney supporters who were enthusiastic about his debate performance were far more likely to answer pollsters than were Obama supporters. So the results looked as if Romney was surging, when in point of fact, we know he wasn't. It was a classic response bias, which is always temporary and never reflective of the actual state of the race. Now, if you want to overcome response bias, at the very least, you have to look at the polling aggregate, the average of all the polling that's been done, which then tends to dilute the bad polls, the response bias polls, with ones that are more reflective of the actual electorate that will be coming out to vote on Election Day. And if we do that, if we take a look at the RCP aggregate, that's the Real Clear Politics polling aggregate that averages out all the polls, what do you think we see? Take a look. That's Trump right now as we speak, polling at his all-time highest ever. Ever. He's at 48.1% support, just shy of the popular vote. He has never polled that high before, ever. Red Eagle Politics was talking about that in his latest video. You'll want to check that out. He gives some excellent analysis on these polls. Again, the legacy media is not going to show you this. They're going to bury it, just like they buried Biden's senility, just like they tried to bury Kamala, but for a very different reason. Remember, gang, it was just a few short months ago that the Washington Post was actually calling on Kamala Harris to step down as VP for the good of the country. She was so unpopular. She was a polling disaster. She was so loathed even by her own staff, with a 92% turnover rate since she's become VP. She was such a drain on Biden's candidacy that the left-wing activists disguised as journalists over at the Washington Post were openly calling on her to step aside. Now she's the most popular person on the planet. Nobody is buying this. Make no mistake, nobody. And once again, we go to the polling averages to prove that. David Giglio tweeted out a very helpful reminder for us that really puts things in perspective. When you compare President Trump to where he was in 2016, 2020, I mean, there's simply no way around the fact that he is in a far stronger position than he's ever been in to win the presidency. That's just an objective fact. Take a look at where we are right now with the polling. Trump has actually gone up 0.1% higher since Giglio's tweet just the other day. But compare that to the polls in 2020. And remember, you see that, right? You see all the blue. Remember now, even seeing all that blue, remember, Biden, quote unquote, won with all that blue. He won by just 40,000 votes. 10,000 Arizona, 10,000 Georgia, 20,000 Wisconsin. That's it. Had 40,000 votes gone the other way, Trump would be still the president today. And it's because no one turns out the vote like Trump. The polls always underestimate the Trump turnout. Case in point, look at 2016. Again, virtually all blue. If Trump had the poll numbers he's got today, if he had those same poll numbers back in 2020 and 2016, we would all be absolutely pumped and elated. And take a look at this. According to all the polling average out, this is what the electoral map looks like right now as we speak. Trump is just shy of a 300 electoral vote victory. The numbers just don't lie. How on earth are we supposed to believe that Kamala is surging when nearly 2 weeks after Biden dropped out, with the current honeymoon period and the response bias and all the polls and a fawning media just going 24/7? What an amazing person. With all of that, Trump is still poised to win upwards of 300 electoral votes. And that's when you count all the polls that have been taken. No cherry picking, no cafeteria selective polling. This right now is the polling picture that is really happening. But of course, the legacy media, like they did with Biden, like Biden's basement, the legacy media will never, ever share this with you. So that's why we're here. That's why you come to this channel and other amazing channels like Rich Barris of the People's Pundit and Red Eagle Politics, who are just doing real, honest, solid polling analysis and not the propagandistic puff pieces pushed by a legacy media that covered up Biden's senility for the last 3.5 years. Make no mistake, the polls showing a Harris surge are frauds. Ironically, it's Trump that's seeing the real surge.